At the family Christmas gathering, my husband Derek raised a toast to everyone. He turned to his father and said, "Thanks, Dad, for all the help with my career. I'm really grateful." Then to his mother he said, "Mom, thank you for taking care of me all these years. I hope you stay healthy." When it was my turn, he put down his glass and started eating from his plate. I thought he had simply forgotten to say something to me, so I gently reminded him. He slammed his knife and fork down on the table. With an impatient tone, he muttered, "A toast should be made to someone worthy of it. I've been the one working and supporting you these past 2 years. What's so admirable about you?" I smiled. The next day I signed the divorce papers and made sure he got out of my company. That night, when Jenny brought the last dish to the table, Derek seemed to get in the mood. He poured himself a generous glass of wine and raised a toast to his father first. "Thanks, Dad, for all your help with my career. I really appreciate it." Mateo beamed with a big smile and clinked glasses with his son. Then Derek turned to Jenny. "Mom, thank you for taking care of me all these years. I wish you good health." Jenny smiled with gratitude and took a big sip of her drink. I thought he was about to say something to me next, so I quickly poured myself a glass of wine and prepared to toast with Derek. But to my surprise, Derek put down his glass and started eating his food. The atmosphere turned a bit awkward. I figured he'd just forgotten, so I softly reminded him, "Derek, don't you have something to say to me?" To my shock, he immediately darkened, slammed his fork onto the table and impatiently said, "A toast should be made to someone worthy of it. I've been the one supporting you for the past 2 years. What's so admirable about you?" My hand holding the glass froze in midair, my eyes now flashing with anger. But Derek didn't stop. "You don't work and you won't have kids. You spend all your time at home, either spending money to pamper your face or dressing up and going out with your girlfriends for shopping and manicures. You're a parasite with no contribution to this family. What's so admirable about that?" I couldn't help but sneer inwardly, trying to hold back the urge to throw my drink in his face. Mateo and Jenny had always been kind to me, and I didn't want to ruin their Christmas. Jenny quickly intervened. "Evelyn, don't be upset. Derek's drunk." Mateo was also scolding Derek, his voice rising with anger. "What are you talking about? Apologize to Evelyn now." But Derek was stubborn. "Why should I apologize? Isn't it the truth? We've been married for 2 years and I've been the one earning the money to support her. She won't even have kids. Marrying her is like marrying a damn hen. Oh no, even hen can lay some eggs." Before he could finish his sentence, I swiftly grabbed the steaming pot of soup on the table and splashed it on him. Before he even realized what had happened, I snatched the turkey and shoved its backside into his mouth. In my mind, I thought, he really has some nerve speaking to his boss like that. Derek had no idea that the company he worked for was a birthday gift from my father. The truth was, I rarely appeared at the company. He had never seen me there, so naturally he had no idea I was the largest shareholder. When Derek joined the company, he was just a low-level employee. He had only graduated from an average university, with no particularly impressive work abilities. After a few years, aside from gaining some experience, his position and salary remained the same. The first time I saw him, he was hiding in a stairwell, smoking with a troubled look on his face. Every movement of his seemed straight out of a movie, like a star on the screen. Back then, I was all about romance. Derek's sharp features and piercing gaze hit all the right notes for me. So despite my family's objections, I stubbornly pursued him. I even used my personal influence to have him promoted from a junior employee to an executive in just a few months. My father couldn't stop me, so he begrudgingly agreed, though he made 3 demands. "Evelyn, don't tell him you're a shareholder. Don't tell him about your family background. And for the first 3 years, don't have children. If you can't do this, we'll cut ties completely." I was a little stunned. "Dad, what are you talking about?" He gave me a knowing smile, one full of disdain, as though to say, "How did this silly daughter of mine not inherit my intelligence?" My father was always a man of his word, and I took his 3 conditions to heart, obeying them without question. So I married Derek under the guise of being an orphan. At first, Derek was completely compliant with me. After meeting me, he got promoted several times and kept saying I was his lucky star. Jenny and Mateo were also very kind to me. When they heard I was an orphan, Jenny pulled Derek aside and told him not to take advantage of me. For a while I was truly happy. My husband listened to me, and Jenny and Mateo treated me like their own daughter. Later, in the mundane grind of daily life, While our marriage wasn't as sweet as it had been in the honeymoon phase, it was still warm and comfortable. Before, I never lifted a finger to help at home, but after marriage I learned to cook. Every day I made delicious meals for him and kept the house tidy. Back in my family, these were things the maid would do. Yet I did it all without a word of complaint, even without any form of compensation. I also promised Derek that I didn't want children in the first 3 years. After 3 years I'd consider it. I just never expected that today Derek, after drinking, would blurt out what he truly thought. It turned out, in his mind, I was nothing more than a worthless parasite. As I watched him yell at me, I sneered. "Marry whoever you want, Derek. I'm done with you. I'm divorcing you." "Evelyn, what the hell is wrong with you?" Derek roared at me, his face twisted in fury. I narrowed my eyes, wondering how I had ever found this man attractive. Right now his face looked utterly repulsive. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called my father's driver, asking him to come pick me up. Behind me, Jenny wouldn't stop scolding. "Evelyn, you're being too impulsive. Arguing is one thing, but throwing food? That was out of line. And honestly, Derek has a point. My God, it's Christmas. Do you really have to ruin the mood? Just apologize to him and let it go." I turned around, feeling a deep sense of disappointment. My voice was cold. "Jenny, you're actually defending the way Derek insulted me? So you've thought the same thing all along, haven't you? That I'm worthless? You're just as selfish as he is." How had I never seen it before? Jenny had always favored Derek. She froze, caught off guard, her expression tinged with hurt. "Evelyn, how could you say that to me? I'm your family." "Not anymore." Expressionless, I slid my wedding ring off my finger and flung it at Derek's face. "I'm divorcing your son." With that, I grabbed my bag and walked out. Jenny tried to stop me, but Derek bellowed, "Let her go. She's an orphan, no family, no one to turn to. Let's see where the hell she thinks she's gonna go." My chest tightened, my throat burned, and for the first time I regretted not listening to my family. The driver arrived quickly and took me home. The moment I stepped inside, I collapsed into my parents' arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I hadn't seen them in person for 2 years. Even when I tried to call them, I have to do it secretly. 2 whole years, all for a worthless man like Derek. My father took one look at my tear-streaked face and sighed, shaking his head. "Didn't I tell you Derek was no good? Look what happened. At least you're coming to your senses now. Can you finally get over that ridiculous love-struck brain of yours?" My mother wiped away her own tears and cut him off. "Enough, don't start lecturing her now. Our daughter is home and that's all that matters." She smiled warmly and took my hand. "Let's eat first. It's Christmas and we're just happy to have you back." After dinner, I called my lawyer and prepared the divorce papers. The winter night was long and bitterly cold, but not once did Derek call. Not a single message. In his eyes, I had no parents, no friends. I was alone in this city and he had been my only connection here. Yet he wasn't even slightly concerned about where I had gone or if I was safe. My heart hardened. My resolve to divorce him only grew stronger. The next morning, I walked into my company ready to have Derek sign the papers. The moment I stepped into the company, I spotted my secretary, Taylor. She immediately walked up to me with a bright smile. Glancing around to make sure no one was watching, she finally whispered, "Boss, you're finally here. I haven't seen you in a while." I nodded and told her, "Taylor, from now on, you don't have to be discreet about my identity. Just call me boss in front of everyone." "You got it," she grinned. I settled into my office, waiting for the executive meeting to wrap up. Then, without warning, an uninvited guest barged in. The moment she saw me, her expression twisted with surprise. "Evelyn, this is Miss Charlotte Astor's office. Get out now." I leaned back in my chair, intrigued. How did she know my name? From the way she dressed, it was obvious she was an employee here. She shot me a condescending look and rolled her eyes. "You're Derek's wife, that little orphan, aren't you? I've seen your picture. Didn't expect you to look even worse in person." Her voice dripped with mockery as she continued, "Derek complains about you all the time. Says you sit around the house doing nothing, won't even give him a kid. No wonder he found someone better." I caught the key detail in her words right away. Derek was cheating. And judging by her smug attitude, his mistress was standing right in front of me. My gaze flicked to the name tag on her chest. Sadie Jones. Fingering the divorce papers on my desk, I tilted my head and smirked. So who's Derek in love with? You. Sadie didn't even bother pretending. She let out a loud, triumphant laugh. That's right. Me. And what are you gonna do about it? Derek never loved you. You should face reality, pack your bags and leave. If you behave, I might even put in a good word for you so Derek gives you a little money in the divorce. Otherwise, you'll be left with nothing. Just then the executive meeting ended. A group of high-level managers was walking past my office. Sadie shot me a gloating glance. Watch closely. I'll make sure you understand exactly where you stand. And with that she suddenly smacked herself across the face, hard. Then again. And again. Before I could react, she threw herself backward onto the floor and let out a dramatic scream. Evelyn. You don't even work here. This is a company, not your home. I was just trying to be nice and ask you to leave. Why would you hit me? The commotion drew the attention of the executives outside, and they all stopped in their tracks to look inside. The moment Derek turned his head toward us, I raised my hand and slapped Sadie across the face. Sadie looked dazed, clearly not understanding why I had just slapped her. I flexed my wrist, which stung slightly from the impact, and looked down at her with a cold smile. Sadie, do you even know who I am? She clutched her face, pretending to be pitiful. Even if you're Derek's wife, you can't just barge into the president's office. If the president finds out, we'll all be in trouble. Derek rushed in and helped her up, his face dark with anger as he turned to glare at me. Evelyn, wasn't last night's scene at home enough for you? Now you have to come to my workplace and start another mess. If you have something to say, say it at home. Why the hell did you hit Sadie? Sadie seized the opportunity to put on her pathetic act, looking up at Derek with teary eyes. Derek, I thought your wife was lost since it was her first time at the company, so I kindly reminded her that this is the president's office and suggested she wait for you in the lounge instead. But she got mad, said she'd sit wherever she damn well pleased, and accused me of having an affair with you. Then she just started slapping me. Derek, please explain it to her. Being falsely accused like this is worse than death. Her voice trembled as tears rolled down her cheeks, making her look pitiful and delicate. You crazy woman. I'm not letting you off this time. Derek, furious beyond reason, lunged at me, hand raised for a slap. Derek. A sharp voice cut through the room. I turned toward the speaker, Mr. Martin, one of the company's shareholders. He recognized me. Sweat was already forming on his forehead as he gave me a quick, respectful nod before snapping at Derek in fury. Are you out of your damn mind? Do you even know who she is? Derek hesitated for a second, lowering his hand but still scowling. Mr. Martin, you don't need to defend her. You don't even know what's going on. This crazy woman threw a fit at home yesterday, ruined Christmas dinner, and now she's here causing trouble at work. She barged into Miss Astor's office, slapped Sadie and started making accusations. If I don't teach her a lesson today, she's going to think she can get away with anything. I shot Martin a subtle look, signaling him not to reveal my identity just yet. Martin hesitated, then wiped the sweat off his forehead and tried a different approach. Maybe you should at least hear your wife out? Hear what? Derek scoffed. Are you saying Sadie would lie? Evelyn is obviously just looking for trouble. She's nothing but a troublemaking shrew. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught the smug look in Sadie's gaze. She cast me a triumphant glance before turning back to Derek with a gentle, almost saint-like expression. She even reached up and patted his back soothingly. Derek, don't be mad. I really don't think Evelyn would do something like this. Maybe there's just some misunderstanding. It's okay if I got hit a few times. I don't want you two fighting because of me. You should really talk things out. Derek's furious expression softened slightly, and his tone turned affectionate. Sadie, you're too kind. But I can't just let this go. She needs to learn her place. With that, he raised his hand again, fully intent on striking me in front of everyone. Astor, miss. Taylor suddenly pushed through the crowd at the doorway, her voice crisp and authoritative as she strode forward. Under everyone's stunned gazes, she held out a folder and placed it in front of me. This document requires your signature. Derek stood frozen, his raised hand awkwardly hovering in the air, unsure whether to lower it or keep it there. Sadie was completely dumbfounded. Mr. Martin let out a deep sigh, while the rest of the onlookers erupted into whispers. She's Miss Astor. But isn't she Derek's wife? There's no mistake. Even if we don't recognize Miss Astor, Taylor does. She's her personal secretary. Derek and Sadie are finished. They messed with the wrong person. They totally deserve it. Amidst the murmurs, someone muttered, "Serves them right." I turned to the speaker, my lips curving into a subtle smile. "Oh. And why exactly do they deserve it?" The person hesitated at first, intimidated, but after catching my encouraging gaze, they gathered their courage and spoke. "Miss Astor, Derek has been cheating on you with Sadie right here at the company. I've seen them sneaking around in the break room during lunch." Their words sparked a wave of agreement. "Yeah, and he's always trash-talking you. I've heard him complain so many times, saying he married a useless hen that won't lay eggs. Sadie's even worse. She said you deserve to be an orphan." My smile sharpened. "Is that so? And how long has this been going on?" "Seems like about a year and a half." A year and a half. So Derek had barely been married to me for 6 months before he started screwing around with Sadie. All those memories of our so-called happy married life churned in my stomach, making me sick. "Derek, you're one hell of an actor." A frosty glint flashed in my eyes. Derek and Sadie were starting to grasp just how bad things had gotten for them. They were shaking. I let out a slow, amused chuckle. "Derek, you're quite something, aren't you?" His face drained of color. "Baby, please. You misunderstood, I can explain." Before he could finish, I slapped him across the face. The crisp smack echoed through the room. My voice was calm, but my words cut like ice. "Don't call me baby." Sadie burst into tears, clasping her hands together in a pitiful display. "Miss Astor, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." I swung my hand again, delivering another slap that shut her up instantly. Rubbing my now slightly sore palm, I pulled out the divorce papers and threw them in Derek's face. "Derek, don't waste my time. Sign the damn divorce papers." Then I added with a smirk, "Oh, and you're both fired. You've got 10 minutes to get out of my sight. I never want to see either of you again." Derek stared at the papers, eyes filled with disbelief. He never thought I'd actually go through with it. He shook his head frantically, his voice trembling. No, baby, I messed up. Just give me another chance, please, just one more." Sadie, now desperate, grabbed at my sleeve and begged, "Miss Astor, I was wrong. I was the mistress. I have no shame. Please just forgive me this one time. I really need this job." Their pleading was giving me a headache. I shot Taylor a look. He immediately understood. "Security. Get these two out of here." After I fired Derek, he called me every day. When I refused to answer, he bombarded me with messages. It was always the same nonsense. "Baby, I was wrong. It was all Sadie's fault, she seduced me. Baby, I swear I'll never see her again." The sight of his messages made my skin crawl. I blocked and deleted his number without hesitation. Then for good measure, I pulled the SIM card out of my phone, cut it in half and handed the phone to my housekeeper. Back when he thought I was just an orphan, he hadn't cared where I spent the night. Now that he knew my true identity, he was practically throwing himself at my feet. It was disgusting. When I ignored him, Derek started waiting outside my office building every day. It was the dead of winter, and he stood there in nothing but a thin jacket, looking pale and gaunt, as if he were lovesick to the point of death. Whenever I stepped out of the building, he wouldn't say a word. He'd just bite his lips slightly and stare at me with a pair of sorrowful, longing eyes, like a tragic lover who couldn't bear to let go. Some passers-by, oblivious to the real story, would whisper, "Poor guy. Another good man heartbroken by a cruel woman." Taylor, however, found Derek's sudden change revolting. She had complained more than once, "Miss Astor, I'm begging you, please make him go away. He's so pathetic, it's making me nauseous." I patted her back as she gagged dramatically. "I'd love to, trust me. But the man won't leave." Watching Taylor wipe her tears and snot, I frowned. For the sake of my employees' mental and emotional well-being, I decided it was time for a new approach. That day Mateo and Jenny showed up. Jenny, heart aching, draped a coat over Derek's shoulders. "Derek, my boy, what are you doing? Why are you degrading yourself like this over a woman? With your looks and background, you could have any woman in the world. Why insist on making her change her mind?" Derek swayed weakly as if on the verge of collapse. "No, Mom. Evelyn is different. As long as she forgives me, I don't care how long I have to wait." I clapped my hands lazily and walked toward him with a smirk. "What a performance. You should have gone into acting." It was the first time I had acknowledged him in days, and his eyes lit up with excitement. Evelyn, please just listen. I waved a hand, cutting him off. Enough. I've heard your speech 100 times. Let's cut to the chase. One last time, are you signing the divorce papers or not? Derek's gaze was unwavering. I won't sign. Evelyn, I still love you. Love my ass. Taylor rolled her eyes so hard behind me I thought they might get stuck. All right then. I turned to the 2 bodyguards standing behind me. Escort him out. Be gentle, especially with Derek's parents. Don't hurt them. Derek's expression shifted as he took in the sheer size of the 2 bodyguards. Panic flickered across his face. Evelyn, you hired bodyguards. What the hell do you think you're doing? I'm not leaving. What can you possibly do to me? I blew the invisible dust off my freshly manicured nails and smiled. You're welcome to stay and find out. Derek was a complete coward. The bodyguards didn't even have to touch him, he bolted on his own. Worse, he didn't hesitate to abandon Mateo and Jenny, who had been shielding him. Later that night I told the story to my best friend, Lily, laughing as I recounted how pathetic he had looked. But Lily's smile was faint, her tone more serious than amused. So, what's your plan now? He won't sign the divorce papers. Are you just going to wait him out? I let out a sigh. I could use some tricks, spend a little money and have him signing in minutes. But even after that he'd probably still cling to me. A glint flashed in Lily's eyes. Then let's make sure that after the divorce he doesn't have the energy to keep bothering you. I eyed her warily. Lily, what are you thinking? We live in a society with laws. You better not be planning anything illegal. I was only trying to scare him before. Lily was sharper than me and far more ruthless. She ran businesses like a seasoned strategist. I wasn't worried about Derek's downfall. I was worried that if we pushed him too hard he'd lash out at her in desperation. But Lily just flicked my forehead. Use your brain, will you? Do you really think brute force is the only solution? I rubbed my forehead, still puzzled, as she pulled out a stack of photographs. They were of Sadie, working as a waitress in a restaurant. After my father had Derek and Sadie blacklisted from the industry, they had nowhere to go. With no job prospects, Sadie had been forced to work as a server just to get by. What are you getting at? I asked. Lily's smile turned mischievous. I have a plan. The next day we went to the restaurant where Sadie worked and booked a private dining room. Then we specifically requested Sadie as our server. When she walked in and saw me she went pale with fear. But she didn't dare refuse. If she refused service she'd be fired. With shaky hands she pulled out a mask, secured it over her face and stiffened her spine as she brought in the dishes. I pretended not to recognize her. She exhaled, relieved. But just as she was about to slip out of the room, Lily spoke casually, her voice just loud enough to carry. So you're saying you'd give Derek $3 million as a breakup fee? Just for him to sign the divorce papers? Sure enough, Sadie hesitated at the door. She was listening. I let out a troubled sigh. Yeah. And that's not all. My dad said that if Derek divorces me he's willing to give him shares in one of our family's companies. Lily hummed thoughtfully. But Derek seems so devoted to you. He won't agree to divorce. I sighed again, adding a trace of sadness to my voice. I know. Honestly, part of me doesn't want to let go either. But when I think about everything he's done it just hurts so much. Do you think I should go through with it? I mean, he seems really sincere, like he truly regrets it. Should I give him another chance? The shadow by the door disappeared. Lily and I exchanged a knowing glance. The fish had taken the bait. Lily smirked, shaking her head. Sadie is way too greedy. I took a slow sip of my wine, my expression calm. Yeah. She's digging her own grave. To make the act more convincing, my father personally visited Derek's home. He lowered his stance, speaking with deliberate humility. He kept insisting that I had been too impulsive, that I had hurt Derek, and that if Derek agreed to divorce me he'd be compensated with shares in another company. Jenny didn't even bother hiding her disdain. After all, her precious son had been freezing outside my company for days. Her heart had been aching for him. In her eyes nothing mattered more than her baby boy. Mateo and Derek exchanged a glance. The calculation in their eyes was obvious. If Derek agreed to the divorce he'd get company shares. If he refused he would still be the son-in-law of the Astor family. With the family's massive wealth and me being the sole heir, There was no telling where the inheritance would end up in the future. My father was a smart man. He saw right through their pathetic little game. He sneered and met my gaze. I knew that look in his eyes. Cold. Ruthless. Ew. As expected, Derek rejected the offer. He feigned sincerity, saying, "I don't want to divorce Evelyn. I still love her." Then he turned to me, his eyes full of forced tenderness. I fought the urge to gag, silently stood up and left with my father. Inside the car, my father pulled out his cologne and sprayed his hands as if scrubbing away the filth. Then he let out an exasperated sigh and scolded me again. "Having a love-struck brain is bad enough. But of all people, this is who you chose. Pretty on the outside, useless on the inside, and rotten to the core." After another deep breath, he asked, "Charlotte, is your plan actually going to work?" I gazed out the window, my voice cold. "Don't worry, Dad. He won't be feeling so smug for long." And I was right. Not long after, Sadie showed up at Derek's doorstep. She played the victim, claiming she had nowhere to go and begging Derek to take her in. Derek was reluctant at first, but Sadie pulled out every trick in the book. She brought up their past affair at the company, reminiscing about their so-called love. She swore she had always truly cared for him, and that the only reason she had framed me was that she had been blinded by love. Weak. Helpless. Deeply devoted. Derek fell for it just like he always did. He let her move in. The moment Sadie stepped into the house, she acted like she owned the place. She fawned over Derek, did housework, whispered in his ear, bad-mouthing me every chance she got. She threw out everything of mine I hadn't taken with me, replacing it with her own things. And as the grand finale, she scratched my face out of every wedding photo and tossed them in the trash. Lily told me all of this with sheer amusement, treating it like a comedy. Her private investigator had been tailing Sadie 24/7, documenting every move. I found it just as entertaining. Sipping my wine, I remarked lazily, "Pathetic. If that's all she's got, it's not enough to make Derek commit to divorcing me." "Of course not," Lily said, taking a slow sip of her own wine. "Sadie knows that too. That's why she's trying harder." I sighed. "She's really not very competent, is she? This little routine might win over Derek's mom, but his dad won't be impressed. Because for Mateo and Derek only one thing mattered. Money." Lily smirked. "Don't underestimate her. For that $3 million she's pulling out all the stops." I raised an eyebrow. "What did she do?" Lily swirled her wine glass and said casually, "She got pregnant." I let out a low whistle. "Cool. Now Derek's mom is going to threaten to die unless he marries Sadie." Derek's mother was an incredibly traditional woman. In her mind, marriage and children were the most important things in life. The moment she found out Sadie was pregnant, she couldn't wait a second longer. She demanded that Derek divorce me and marry Sadie immediately. But Derek refused. And Mateo wasn't on board either. But all the stress over the past few days had already eroded Jenny's emotional stability. She didn't care about wealth or status anymore. She just wanted this family to be settled. So for the first time in her life, this traditional woman did something reckless. She climbed onto the window ledge, one foot already hanging over the edge. One wrong move and she'd plummet. Derek was terrified. No matter how much he begged, Jenny refused to come down. She sobbed hysterically, her voice raw from crying, "Either you divorce that damn woman and marry Sadie or I jump. You and your father can pick one." Derek and Mateo exchanged horrified glances. Meanwhile, Sadie clung to Derek's pants, sobbing dramatically. "Derek, I really love you. Why can't you let go of Evelyn? Am I not better than her? She's the reason you lost your job. Why do you still care about her? Besides, that rich evil woman has power. If we push her too hard, who knows what she'll do to us. Derek, you might as well just take the deal now." Sadie had been whispering in Derek's ear every single day, planting doubts, feeding his resentment. And now, with his mother's life on the line, something inside Derek finally snapped. His last thread of resistance broke. Right then and there he made up his mind he'd take the company shares and divorce me. Hearing the pathetic climax of their little drama, I let out a cold laugh. I stood up and stretched lazily. Time to pull in the net. I deliberately dragged things out, waiting until Sadie was 8 months pregnant before filing for divorce in court. By that point the baby was too far along. The sunk cost was too high. She wouldn't just abandon the child and run, even if the promised 3 million never came. Outside the courthouse, after signing the final documents, I exhaled deeply. Finally, Derek was out of my life. The sunlight kissed my face, warm and gentle, as if congratulating me for ridding myself of that scumbag. Behind me, Derek helped Sadie out of the building. They were already discussing their wedding plans. Noticing that I hadn't left yet, Sadie deliberately raised her voice as if showing off. "Baby, what do you think of this wedding dress I picked?" Derek barely responded, giving a half-hearted nod. Then suddenly he reached for my arm. "Don't touch me." I shoved him away in disgust. Embarrassed, a flicker of anger flashed in his eyes. But it quickly disappeared, replaced with a false look of regret. "Evelyn," he said, his voice soft, "your father handed me the company. We'll have to work together in the future. If you ever need guidance, feel free to ask me. We were married once after all. I wish you nothing but the best." The gall of this man, still acting like he was some selfless, devoted ex-husband. Wanting everything but deserving nothing. I couldn't even stand to look at him. Without another word, I opened my car door and got in. Just as I was about to drive away, Sadie called out to me. Her expression was filled with doubt. "Wait, what about the 3 million? I blinked innocently. 3 million. A slow, smug smile spread across my lips. Sadie hesitated, confusion flickering across her face. Then, panic. Her head snapped toward Derek as she shrieked. "At the restaurant, you said it yourself. You and your friend were talking about giving Derek 3 million if he divorced you. The company shares have been handed over, so where's the money?" I chuckled. Like a lion watching its prey walk right into the trap. With a relaxed tone, I mused, "Sadie, are you sure you didn't just remember that wrong?" Derek looked utterly lost. Because he had never once heard about 3 million. My father and I had never mentioned it to him. Only the company shares. Derek had planned to demand more in the divorce settlement, but before he could even open his mouth, I had sent his father a package. One filled with high-resolution photographs of him and Sadie in a very compromising position inside my company's lounge. With concrete evidence of his affair laid bare and a polite yet pointed note attached, Derek had backed off immediately. He took the company shares and didn't dare ask for a single cent more. Sadie's eyes went blank, her lips trembling. "No 3 million, she whispered. "No 3 million. And then realization hit her like a truck. "You tricked me. You did this on purpose." Her voice rose into a shrill scream. "You evil bitch. You'll burn in hell for this. I did all of this, for what? For what? I even gave up my own body." Her hands clutched her head as she screamed, her entire body shaking. Derek quickly steadied her, worried she'd collapse from the stress. I simply tilted my head, my voice light and indifferent. "But you did it for love, didn't you?" She froze. Her gaze snapped to me, filled with seething hatred. But when she looked down at her swollen belly and then at Derek standing beside her, she said nothing. Because there was no way out. She had no choice but to live with it. I stepped on the gas, rolling down the window just enough to leave her with one final, parting remark. "At least he still has the company shares, right?" Then I drove away, leaving nothing but ruins behind me. My father had never intended to give Derek shares in a profitable company. The business he handed over was already on the verge of bankruptcy. That bastard made my daughter suffer like this, and he still wants to walk away with a golden ticket? Keep dreaming. My father sat on the couch, flicking the ashes off his cigar with a look of utter disdain. I chuckled. "Dad, aren't you worried he might actually turn things around? What if he gets lucky and revives the company?" My father shot me a glance, the familiar look of contempt in his eyes. "He doesn't have what it takes. But even if, by some miracle, he manages to save that company, I have ways to take the shares back. Either way, I win." Then he smirked, his expression turning downright chilling. "But if he doesn't get lucky, well, let's just say the consequences won't be pretty." A shiver ran down my spine. I rarely saw the side of my father, but Derek had made the grave mistake of crossing the wrong man. Derek's biggest flaw? His greed. And sure enough, it didn't take long before everything started crumbling. Apparently, after that day at the courthouse, Derek started feeling like something wasn't right. The way Sadie panicked when I mentioned the 3 million? The way she kept dodging the topic? So that night, Derek pressed her for answers. Cornered and under pressure, Sadie cracked. She confessed. She had never planned to marry him for love, she was only after the 3 million. Derek lost it. They had a full-blown fight, screaming, throwing things, breaking everything in sight. Derek roared at her, his face red with fury. Once the baby is born, we're getting divorced. But Sadie just laughed. It was cold. Almost deranged. You're dreaming. I have nothing left now. I'm never divorcing you. You're stuck with me for life. Derek slammed the door in her face and never went back home. From that night on, he started sleeping at the company. And that was the beginning of his downfall. Derek's downfall came faster than even my father had predicted. The company he had been so eager to accept was already a sinking ship, and he was the last fool left on board. Within months it went completely under. Debt collectors came knocking. The company's assets were seized and Derek was left drowning in liabilities. He tried everything: loans, desperate business pitches, even reaching out to former colleagues. But no one wanted to associate with a failed man. By the time Sadie gave birth, he could barely afford the hospital bill. With no money, no job, and no home of their own, Sadie had no choice but to return to her parents' place. A tiny, cramped apartment far from the life she had dreamed of. As for Derek, Matteo shut the door on him too. Jenny had pleaded for her son, but Matteo was a businessman first. A bankrupt, disgraced son was just dead weight. Derek was left with nothing. Me. I flourished. After finalizing the divorce, I took a step back from everything and went abroad to further my studies. My father gave me full control over which direction I wanted to take, and I spent my time sharpening my skills, building connections, and preparing for the future. When I returned, I was no longer just the heiress of the Astor family. I was the one in charge. I took over the company with full authority, expanding our business beyond what my father had ever envisioned. Under my leadership, we entered new markets, crushed competitors, and became an industry powerhouse. One evening, after a long day of meetings, I glanced at my phone and saw a message request. It was from Derek. His profile picture was outdated, but even through the screen I could tell he was no longer the man he once was. The message was short. "Evelyn, can we talk?" I didn't even bother opening it. With a slight smile, I blocked him. The past was dead and I had never felt more alive.
I once thought I would be the ultimate winner. The first time I saw Derek in the office, he was nothing more than a nobody, just another low-level employee in an ill-fitting suit, with shoes polished too brightly, a man beaten down by life itself. He was hardly worth a second glance. After all, he had neither power nor influence, and to make matters worse, he was married, though his wife was nothing more than a stay-at-home decoration, someone who spent her days arranging flowers and playing house. But I underestimated human nature. When he rose within months from an insignificant worker to a company executive, that was when I truly noticed him. Power gives men an aura. Suddenly, he seemed desirable. He started lingering near me, in the break room, in the lounge, always finding excuses to brush against me. A fleeting touch on the wrist, a whisper of a joke against my ear, a knowing smirk. He thought he was the predator. But he was the easiest prey. Evelyn? Just a useless housewife who spends her days arranging flowers. A true alpha woman would never settle for being a parasite. Derek doesn't need a fragile ornament, he needs a partner, someone who can conquer the business world with him. And I was the perfect match. The day she accidentally walked into the president's office, I thought I had the perfect opportunity to humiliate her. I raised my voice, mocking her in front of everyone, taunting her pathetic background, her orphan mentality. I wanted her to see, to understand, that she had already lost Derek's heart. I watched her expression turn cold. I had one. Pathetic. She can't even keep her own husband. When Derek finally leaves her, I can't wait to see her crumble. But reality slapped me in the face instead. Do you even know who you're talking to? That day, she sat down in the president's chair, crossing her legs leisurely, a slow, cruel smile on her lips. I froze. And then Taylor handed her a document. Charlotte Astor. She was the heiress of the entire corporation. Laughter erupted around me. A woman who slept her way up dares to challenge the boss? My face turned ghostly pale. As security dragged me out of the building, my heel caught in the doorway, making me stumble and fall, utterly, humiliatingly pathetic. I spent 2 years fighting her for a man, and she was the company's heiress all along? Derek, you blind fool. After being fired, I sent out countless job applications. No one responded. My resume wasn't just ignored, it was automatically rejected. I tried working at a coffee shop, only for the owner to take one look at me and scoff, "A gold digger like you? You wouldn't last a day." I clenched my teeth, swallowed my pride, and told myself, at least I still had Derek. That was when I overheard them. Evelyn and her friend, sitting in a private booth at a restaurant. "As long as Derek agrees to the divorce, he'll get $3 million. My breath caught in my throat. $3 million. I would never make that kind of money, not even if I worked for a lifetime. I had to act fast. Evelyn will never take him back. If I get Derek to marry me, the money and the baby will be mine. That bitch will be nothing but a laughingstock. So, that night, when Derek got drunk, I made sure to forget contraception. The baby isn't just leverage, it's my golden ticket into the Astor family's wealth. And just as planned, the moment I cried in front of Jenny, that old woman forced Derek into a divorce. Derek walked away with company shares. But a few months later, the company suddenly declared bankruptcy. Derek lost it. He smashed the furniture in our tiny rental apartment, screaming in rage. I looked at the worthless stock certificates in my hand, and for the first time, fear settled in my gut. He wasn't an investment. He was just trash that the Astor family threw away. I gambled my youth, my reputation, for nothing. Derek turned on me, his eyes wild with frustration. "You only married me for money, didn't you?" I stared back at him. And for the first time, I saw him clearly. Not a wealthy businessman. Not an ambitious leader. Just a loser. That night, while he was out drowning his sorrows, I checked his bank account. I took the last $50,000. Packed my bags. And left with the baby. Before disappearing, I sent him one last text. "You deserve to be played by Evelyn. But I won't waste another second on you."